speaker to please be stuck to the time.
Good evening, my dear friends, colleagues and seniors. A very big thank you to Team Amox for giving me this platform and a big opportunity to talk in front of you. All you know that today's my topic is TLH in scarred uterus, the tips and tricks. First, I would like to thank my mentor in laparoscopy, Dr. Sanjay Patel and Dr. Rajendra Sangpal. As you all know that 1/3 of the newborn babies are delivered by cesarean section nowadays worldwide, and day by day you are getting pregnant. You are getting a previous scarred patient, previous cesarean patient for hysterectomy. So when I was doing post graduation at JJ Hospital, I hardly get any patient for hysterectomy with cesarean scar or previous scar like myomectomy scar or cesarean scar. But after 15 years, I get every alternate patient of a case of hysterectomy, the scarred uterus. As you all know that vaginal hysterectomies are less expensive but are challenging in patients with endometriosis, adnexal masses and previous abdominal surgeries. Because of the improvement in the laparoscopic instrumentation and expertise and reduced cost of the laparoscopic establishment, the laparoscopic procedures are day by day increasing, and it is advantageous in these patients. All of us had gone some sorts of complications in their learning core. This is one of the case. Yeah. So this I started TLH almost 6 years back with previous 3 LSCs. I had dissected the broad ligament fold, and I was just above the uterines as we go for the lateral window technique. There was difficulty in negotiating the fibrosis. So I changed my plan and then started doing dissection at the center of the adhesion. Actually, you should go by lateral window dissection, but I started doing the central dissection, and by traction counter traction with the bipolar forceps and the scissor, I started doing advancing and negotiating this. But because of the force, look what happened. There is a rent in the bladder. You can appreciate this. Do you all? Yeah. So how I managed this case, that I will tell you later in my talk. So this is my presentation outline. The counseling part plays a very, very important role when the patient came with for hysterectomy in cases of previous scarred uterus. You should tell the patient each and every complications, and tell one thing that is very important, that the burden of calling the neurosurgeon at the time of surgery or the general surgeon, that you don't have to be bothered. So if you release the economical burden on the patient, then that patient will get eased out, and then you can manage the case swiftly. So the counseling of the patient is more important. You are all aware of this patient positioning. I will not go in detail. This is the routine OT setup. You can see here multiple abdominal scars. When the initial start of the practice, I usually get frightened with such type of scars. Now where to start? I used to call Dr. Sangpal, and then he said do this and that, and over the period I realized few things, that such patients should be managed with the two most important technique is the entry technique, and this entry technique is, there are 3 types of entry techniques, that is open entry technique, that is with the Hassen's technique, the closed entry technique with the Veress needle, and the direct trocar entry. So these are the 3 methods of the entry technique. There was a paper published by Molloy D in 2002 in obstetric gynecol, which suggests that gynecologists, most of the gynecologists uses varus needle, because when I was in JJ hospital, we start with the putting the varus needle and doing the entering into the abdomen, and most of the general surgeons do this Hassan's technique. So I will go with the focus on the technique of the Hassan's. Here the incision is made through the abdominal wall under direct vision. The advantages are avoidance of the blind puncture with a varus needle and correct anatomical repair of the abdominal incision. This technique had been used for lower abdominal surgeries and pregnant patients. Disadvantages are in obese patients, and it is very time consuming also, and sometimes it is very difficult to maintain the pneumoperitoneum. So Jongrak Themsuwan had concluded in a paper of Principles of Safe Abdominal Surgery in Laparoscopic Gynecological Surgery that the open technique is associated with a significant reduction of the failed entry. However, there is no difference in the incidence of visceral or vascular injury. The Cochrane review in 2012 also suggested the same, and they also added that the varus needle was also associated with an increased incidence of failed entry, extraperitoneal insufflation, and omental injury. So this is the direct trocar entry method. I usually follow this technique because since started with the laparoscopic work, my teachers told to do with this type of method of technique. In this, the umbilicus and the gypoid process midpoint is taken. A stab incision was made. I think you had not seen the direct trocar entry. Anyone had not shown this direct entry. I'm the first one. And then the left hand, you can fold the abdomen, and with the screw and unscrewing movement, you can enter into the cavity. After the starting of the pneumoperitoneum, you can insert the telescope. As you entered, you can inspect the bowel and if there is any trocar injuries there or not. Always put the nasogastric tube before starting any type of trocar insertion. If there is stomach, then you will just have to be messed up with that condition. What the Cochrane review said, there is a distinct advantage in using the direct trocar entry technique in comparison to varus needle entry with regard to the failed entry, extraperitoneal insufflation, and omental injury. So most of the general surgeons laughed at gynecologists, those who are doing the laparoscopy, that you are doing direct and that is that will hit into the aorta or major bowel injury or major vessels. So you can show this reference of the 2012 Cochrane review that direct trocar entry is a method of the inserting the trocar. You do it with the Hassan's technique or with the direct entry technique, doesn't matter. It's all up to the surgeon choice. This is again fancy item, that is optical direct trocar entry. I just had 6 minutes, I will go fast. So there are different points where we should enter. So first is the intraumbilical. In the previously scarred abdomen, you should go above the umbilicus. So they are the Liu Huang points. There are different points. I will go in detail of that. This is the Palmer's point. It's a left upper quadrant point. In patients with the previous laparotomy, Palmer advocated insertion of varus needle with needle 3 cm below the left subcostal border and in the mid-clavicular line. Always put the nasogastric tube and then do the varus needle insertion. The patients with previous splenic and gastric surgery or portal hypertension or significant gastropancreatic masses should be excluded. Then this is the Li Huang point. I generally use this point in my routine practice. It's a central point between the gypoid process and the umbilicus. In 2001, this technique was published by Lee et al., who used this point for the varus needle or the direct trocar entry technique. as an alternative for portal for laparoscopy and operative pelviscopy. Li Huang point is effective for women who had previous abdominal surgery and gynecological malignancy, and the other advantage is also provides central vision. Another is the J point. This is invented by our own Dr. Nutan Jain from Muzaffarpur. This is a point 1 centimeter above the anterior superiliac spine, 2.5 centimeter medial to it, and almost 10 centimeter in line of the umbilicus. See, according to her, there are least chance of bowel adhesions at this point, and this J point should be used during the laparoscopic procedures. Another is the Gowans point. This is also similar to the Li Huang point, but it is lateral to the midpoint between the xiphoid process and the xiphoid process. So friends, what is the best point of entry? It's up to the surgeon, whatever he wants to and whatever he used to do. Is there any role of myoma spiral or manipulator? Yes, definitely. In such cases, you should use the myoma spiral or uterine manipulator or uterine hitching. In my practice, I generally follow use this uterine myoma screw, but you should be cautious in patients with the cervical malignancy or endometrial malignancy. So before starting the laparoscopic hysterectomy, you should be aware of what is the lateral window technique. So bladder is catheterized. We start with from the broad ligament is opened. We have to stay above the uterine vessel. And you have to go from caudal to cephalad. If you remember my video first, that I went initially for lateral window technique, but I changed my position from cephalad to caudal, and that's make the injury. So you have to find out the endopelvic fascia and separate the bladder. So this is a case of total laparoscopic hysterectomy in cases of previous 3 LSCS. As you are aware that omental adhesions are there. After separating the omental adhesion, I started with dissecting the IP ligament, left IP ligament. As there was a large ovarian cyst, I have to remove that ovary. Then I started dissecting the left broad ligament. You have to stay above the uterine vessel, find out the endopelvic fascia and try to dissect it. Left posterior broad ligament fold is then desiccated and cut. The uterine vessels are coagulated. Once you cut the uterosacral, the ureter will go down. Now your job is to go above, separate the bladder flap. So if you remember my first case, I injured the bladder. So when life puts you in tough situations, don't say why me and say try me. So would you call neurosurgeon? Yes, medically you should. What if neurosurgeon is not available? You should do your job. Meanwhile, if the neurosurgeon comes, tell him to sit in the OT, give him a coffee, and under his guidance do the procedure or do the repairing. How will you identify the intraoperative bladder injury? Clear fluid in the operative field, visible bladder laceration, gaseous distension in the drainage bag, and urinary drainage from accessory trocar site. How to repair the bladder? So this is a cautery injury. You have to identify the two edges of the bladder
इसका क्या होगा?
Fix the two ends of the bladder. They will guide you in further suturing. Yeah. I can't stop here, madam, otherwise she will have fistula. Yeah. So let me finish. So first layer of the bladder will be sutured with simple running 3-0 polyglactin suture. You can include the mucosa, don't bother of that, because we are using the absorbable suture. This is the closure of the first layer. Then the second layer is taken with the muscularis. You can take it intermittently or continuously.
So please.
Even the 2-0, yeah, finishing. You can put the this momental patch over there. Varus needle injuries or small injuries to the bladder can be successfully managed conservatively by putting the catheter for 7 to 14 days. Large bladder injuries can be managed like this. My experience at Lifespring Hospital is that in the 64 cases I had done in last 2 years, the average surgical time was 40 minutes to 90 minutes. There were two major complications, one with the bladder injury and another with the ureteric injury. Approximate blood loss was around 50 to 100 ml, and none of the patients required blood transfusion. Pain score was around 3. This is our own Dr. Rakesh Sinha's paper, which suggests that this total laparoscopic hysterectomy in patients with the previous cesarean section delivery is technically feasible and should be done. So, my dear friends, don't worry about the failures, worry about the chances you miss when you don't even try. I would like to conclude that scarring from the prior pelvic surgery after anatomy and increases the risk of urinary tract injuries. By identifying the endopelvic fascia by lateral window technique, bladder can be dissected out. In the hands of the thoroughly trained laparoscopic surgeons, using a standardized technique, it is safe to perform TLH in previously scarred uterus. Super thank you.